The 2017 World Series of Poker is just around the corner, and it's sponsored by 888poker.com. 888 is the only place offering online WSOP satellites starting at just 1 cent. Visit www.888poker.com and register your account with offer code SMART888. Hello, I'm Sky Matsuhashi, founder of SmartPokerStudy.com, the place for poker players who are always striving to be better today than they were yesterday. Poker people, in last week's episode number 124, I taught you how to choose the most profitable tables with 7 key aspects to always look out for. Hey, poker people, I am so grateful that y'all give me a little time every week to up your poker skills. I know some of you listen in your car, maybe while you're walking the dog, you're mowing the lawn, or maybe you're grinding out some hands online. However you listen, thank you so much, and please keep sharing the show. Okay, let's get to it today. It's the third and final class of the 5th MED, or minimum effective dose, which is understanding your opponents. So, in today's episode, I'll be talking about 2 different things. The first is a very important poker concept that I call consider before you click. Realizing this was one of those cliched aha moments for me. I'll also tell you which HUD statistics you must have in your HUD to help you more quickly understand your opponents. So please visit the show notes page for everything I discussed today, along with screenshots and links at www.smartpokerstudy.com/pod125. While you're there, please sign up for the weekly boost for exclusive poker strategy direct to your inbox. Alrighty, it's time. Gambate!
And now for our feature presentation.
So we've all listened to plenty of poker interviews, and somebody asks a pro or a coach about an aha moment that they had. You know, some sort of big poker epiphany at some time in their poker career. Well, I've been thinking about that recently, and I think my biggest aha moment was actually learning that I need to consider my actions and how my opponent will react before I click that button. And back in the day, I'll admit this to all of you, and I'm sure most of you were in the same position I was at some point. Back in the day, I used to just kind of click away at what I thought I should do based on the hand I was dealt. Pocket aces, yep, I was 3-betting and 4-betting every single time. Ace-5 offsuit in the cutoff, faux show, I was stealing that hand every time when it was folded around to me. And maybe pocket 5s in middle position, yep, that's always worth set mining. So I just auto-click that call button every single time. Back in the day, that is, all this stuff. So like I said, I would just button click based on my hand at the time, maybe what the board was and the absolute strength of my hand. Eventually one day it kind of occurred to me, I need to really consider everything before I click that button. Of course, I need to think about my hand and the board, but I also need to consider my position, the current table dynamics, the opponents already in the pot, maybe they limped in, maybe they raised, whatever. And of course, those opponents that are yet to act, those guys in the blinds or the button or wherever it is, I also need to consider things like my image, my opponent's image, my opponent's range, of course, how everyone will likely react to my play, whether I'm calling, limping, betting, raising. I also need to think about stack sizes and possible future streets, what cards might come on those streets, and how I am going to play based on different cards. And I mentioned some instances earlier, like ace-5 offsuit, always worth stealing in the cutoff, pocket aces always 3-betting, and pocket 5s always set mining. But depending on the situation and the opponent you're up against, a different play may be in order. See, that's why the answers to so many questions in poker, the answer is simply, it depends. We've all heard that, we've all said that so many times. And I think many poker players out there, they're looking for hard and fast rules to play the game. Rules, they really end up simplifying things, but poker is anything but simple. And that's why, before you click that button, you've got to take into consideration the situation as a whole, and you need to find the best way to approach it. Here are a few very good questions to help you consider things as you play. Question number 1, how can I make money with this hand right now and against these opponents? Question number 2, how is my opponent going to react to my play? Question 3, what will I do if my opponent doesn't do what I want them to? Question 4, what cards on the next street are good for me, and what cards are bad? And question number 5, how am I going to react to an opponent's call, a check raise, an all-in shove, or whatever else they might end up doing? I'm talking about all of this now because dealing with different opponents is a huge part of the game. Your goal should be to make the best decision possible, given the information that you know, and determining how your opponents will likely react to your play is incredibly important. If the only way to win a pot is to bluff your opponent, but they're like a non-folding calling station, why would you even bluff? If you've got quads on the flop, and your opponent is quick to fold unless they've flopped a strong hand for themselves, why would you bet? So let me leave you with a poker rule. Consider before you click. If they're likely to react unfavorably to your play, don't make it. If they're likely to react how you want them to, then make the play. Alrighty, let's talk about the essential HUD stats for understanding and exploiting your opponents. And I just said that these stats are essential, and I truly mean it. They are must-have stats. They've got to be placed front and center in your heads-up display and not in a pop-up. Too many people keep these stats in a pop-up, and that's not where they belong. These are essential stats, gotta be in the HUD. And all the stats that I'm going to talk about today, they become super useful at just 100 hands, and some of them even sooner than that. These stats help you anticipate how your opponent will react to your plays. Let's dive in, talk about them one by one, and you'll quickly see why I deem them all to be essential stats. So stat number 1 is VPIP, or voluntarily put money in the pot. And this tells us how often our opponent chooses to play hands. The higher it is, the weaker their range of hands. For example, a VPIP of 10% means they play only pocket pairs, ace-jack or better, and king-queen. And that's about it. But at 30%, it's all pocket pairs, probably all aces, all broadways, and connectors and suited connectors, down to like 6-4 suited even, and probably some of those weaker suited kings and queens as well, like king 7, king 9 suited, that kind of stuff. The smaller the range, the stronger it is, so you're less likely to earn easy money from these opponents. The wider the range, the weaker it is, and these are the players you want to get involved with, of course. These are the fish we're looking for, baby. Okay, stat number 2 is PFR, or pre-flop raise percentage. This tells us how often the player raises and what range they raise with. A 10% PFR raises with that small, strong range that I just mentioned. And a 30% PFR, they raise with all that extra garbage I just talked about as well. The higher the PFR percentage, the more likely you'll be able to 3-bet bluff them pre-flop. The lower the percentage, the less likely they'll fold to your 3-bets. And this is great if you've got pocket kings, but it's not so good if you're 3-betting with ace-queen or pocket 9s through pocket jacks. So together, VPIP and PFR, they can tell us a whole heck of a lot. Like I've discussed in previous episodes, these two numbers tell us what type of player they are. High VPIP and low PFR are loose passive fish, and we want to play with them. High VPIP and high PFR, those are lag donks, and we don't want to be on their right. We don't want them to have position on us. Go back and listen to episode 12 or episode 123 for more on player types. And you can see how these two stats are vital to have in your HUD. They're the first clues as to the type of player you're up against, and they become super useful even at just 20 hands. Alrighty, stat number 3 is 3-bet pre-flop, and this is how often they come over the top of another raise pre-flop. The higher this is, the more likely they do it as a steal. Any lower percentages, like sub 5%, those guys are they're 3-betting most likely just for value. A 3-bet of 2%, for example, is only pocket jacks or better and ace-king, whereas 7% is pocket 9s or better, ace-jack, and king-queen suited. Beyond this, and over a larger sample, you found a player who loves to 3-bet bluff, so a 4-bet might be in order, or you can just not open in the first place if you're not willing to 4-bet, and if you don't want to call the 3-bet. The 3-bet percentage becomes quite useful at around 100 hands or so. The fourth stat is fold to steal, and I gotta be honest, this is a great stat. You have to have, I said all of these are essential stats, but you've gotta have this one in there, The blinds are automatic losing positions, and one way that we make up for our own losses in the blinds is to steal blinds from others. Knowing how often your opponents fold to a steal is crucial in tournaments and sit-and-goes, but it also helps a lot in cash games. Players with a fold to steal greater than 80% must be stolen from frequently. And if they don't give up versus steals, you can size your bets bigger with your value range to make money from their unwillingness to fold. So the fifth stat is fold to 3-bet, and you've got to have this stat in your HUD, especially if aggression is part of your game. And I've talked about before, you've got to have aggression in your game. Passive poker is just a losing strategy. But getting back to the fold to 3-bet, if we talk about just the break-even percentage, a 9 big blind 3-bet bluff over a 3 big blind open, that has to work just 67% of the time to break even. If you've got 100 or more hands on an opponent and their fold to 3-bet is at 70% or more, you can expect profitable 3-bet bluffing with any 2 cards. And the higher the stat, the better, of course. 75, 80, 90% folding to 3-bet, great. 3-bet those guys willy-nilly until they decide to fight back. And remember, you do need to know what you're trying to accomplish with your 3-bet before you make it. You're committing extra chips to the pot, and sometimes it's anywhere from 9 to 12 big blinds even, So their stats, their fold to 3-bet stat, it should make you reasonably sure that they'll react how you want them to. And of course, you want to have a plan in case they 4-bet, and a post-flop plan in case they call. So just like the 3-bet stat, this becomes very useful at over 100 hands. Let me tell you about 888poker.com. Man, oh man, have they got a deal for all of us. They offer a killer $10 instant bonus for first-time depositors, but you must be a non-US player. Lucky you, Canada! All you gotta do is open an account and deposit $10 or more using promo code SMART888. With 888, you also get an $88 free bonus package just for registering, no deposit required. And since you're going to skip the free play, and I know you're going to make a deposit, they also have a double your money bonus for first-time depositors of up to $400. It's pretty obvious that these killer bonuses mean that you can build quite a substantial bankroll on 888. 888 was recently ranked in the top 4 of softest online sites by thepokerbank.com. So what are you waiting for? It's time for you to find some fish at 888poker. Sign up at 888poker.com and use promo code SMART888 to get your free $10 and start your way to the WSOP. Those qualifier satellites start at just 1 cent. 888poker.com is for non-US players only. Looks like I'm moving. Malta, here I come. Some quick plugs from me right now. My new book, How to Study Poker, is coming out next week on March 29th. It'll be in paperback, ebook, and audiobook, and I'm super pumped for it. Join my mailing list in the sidebar of today's show notes, and I'll let you know how you can get it for just 99 cents in early April. My webinar, my next premium webinar, that's coming up on March 25th, and it's called How to Study Poker, and obviously, I'm going to teach you how I study poker. Visit www.smartpokerstudy.com/studypokerwebinar for more info. And Patreon. You can support the show by visiting my Patreon page at patreon.com/smartpokerstudy. And Patreon is spelled Patreon. By doing that, you can get some nifty rewards for your support, and I thank you for that support. And of course, come find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/smartpokerstudy. Are you tired of paying so much in rake but getting very little cash back in return? Poker rooms always keep cash back really tight for recreational players, but with habwin.com, you can get so much more in benefits when playing in your favorite poker rooms. It's like you're a rakeback grinding poker pro. Check out www.habwin.com/getpokercashback like a pro. That's all one word. I'll say it again. habwin.com/getpokercashback like a pro. By going there, you'll register, sign, and you'll get in the money. Alrighty, back to class, poker people. So we covered the first 5 HUD stats. Now it's time for stats numbers 6 and 7. It's the flop and the turn c-bet. So this is the best flop stat that I use to gauge my opponent's tendencies. Given that you only hit the flop about 33% of the time or so, and by hit, I'm talking about like a really good draw or a pair or better. The higher the percentage here with flop c-bet, that indicates what types of hands they decide to c-bet with. If over a good sample of 100 hands, maybe the opponent is c-betting only 30 or 40%, then I know they only c-bet when they hit the flop. If their c-bet is up around 75% or more, then the opponent likes to mix it up and bluff a lot. They're kind of counting on their pre-flop initiative to take down the pot quite often. The hardest percentage to dissect is right around 50 to 70% or so. This is probably a decent player who mixes it up and uses a HUD to gauge when and if they should bet. So before you decide to play a hand pre-flop, you must look at this stat before you click call or raise. Knowing their post-flop tendencies, that'll help you decide whether or not to play your hand, and it'll allow you to start planning for the entire hand pre-flop. When it comes to turn c-bet, you're looking for a significant drop-off, a leveling out, or even a sharp increase. If the c-bet percentage drops from the flop to the turn, then you've got a turn-honest player, and their turn action will tell you if they like their hand or not. If the c-bet percentage is about the same from the flop to the turn, then they double barrel a lot for value or as a bluff, depending on how high the percentages are. And if the c-bet percentage increases from the flop to the turn, they likely only c-bet when they really like their hand. So they c-bet very frequently on the turn because they only get to the turn with good strong hands. And c-bet stats become very useful at around 50 hands or more. So stats 8 and 9 is flop and turn fold to c-bet. And these stats, they go right along with the regular c-bet stats. Hands hit the flop only 33% of the time. So if they fold to flop c-bet 70% or more, then you've got a flop-honest player, and you need to c-bet with all of your air. Should they call, you can easily give up, knowing that they hit a strong hand, maybe top pair, or a really good draw or something, If their fold to c-bet stat is lower, like 35%, then you need to c-bet all of your value hands and give careful thought to the board texture before you decide to c-bet bluff, especially if out of position. If you're bluffing and they're likely going to call, do you really want to see the next street out of position? I don't think so. When opponents have a middle percentage, like 40 to 60% fold to c-bet over a good sample, they're pretty hard to dissect. They like to continue with all strong hands, of course, but also with draws and maybe overcards and just plain air sometimes when they know that maybe you are turn honest, so they're going to wait and take it away from you on the turn. The fold to turn c-bet stat, it works the same as the fold to flop c-bet, but it takes on the most relevance when looked at in combination with it. Large increases or decreases from flop to turn, they tell you how the opponent views their hand differently on each street. Alrighty, in the home stretch now, stat number 10 is the number of hands abbreviated. So this stat helps to determine how reliable the other HUD stats are. The greater the number of hands, the more you can rely on them to exploit your opponents. 100 hands is okay. 250 hands is good, 500s is very nice, and 1,000 hands or more is great. I use the abbreviated number of hands because over 1,000 hands, it just shows you 1K or 1.5K, etc. And that's good enough for me. I don't need to know that I have 1,245 hands exactly. And the final stat is the note editor. While it's not technically a stat, the note editor is extremely useful in your HUD. You need a place to make notes on opponent reads, tendencies, what they've shown down, plays they've made, or your general thoughts on the player. The notes feature in Poker Tracker 4 also has useful automated notes that show you things like which hands they've 3-bet with in the past, what hands they've called open raises with, and how they've played post-flop. I mentioned this recently, but it's very important that you don't take your notes directly in the PokerSight software. If they remove the notes feature, you're screwed. Plus, having these notes available off the felt during study sessions is very helpful. So that's it, the 11 essential HUD stats that you must have in your HUD. And I know what you're thinking right now. Holy Stromboli, how am I ever going to learn all 11 of those and be able to employ them at the tables? Well, that's what focus sessions and hand history reviews are for. So when it comes to focus sessions, I talked about those way back in episode 8, and that's where you play just 1 or 2 tables at a time with one focus during the session. I recommend playing your next 10 sessions focused on one stat at a time, with the note editor being utilized in every one of those sessions. When you focus on VPIP, for example, you'll look at an opponent's VPIP every time they open the pot. Try to think about what that percentage means for their range of hands from that position. Doing this every time somebody opens the pot will help to ingrain this stat in your noggin. And the second way to practice is through hand history reviews. You need to religiously use the HUD during every hand history review session. Hand history reviews provide the time to pause the action for as long as you need, sift through your notes, dig into the HUD, find the information you need, and determine if your decision can be backed up with good intelligence gathered from the opponent's stats. Practice like this off the felt, with focus sessions on the felt, and I guarantee this will ingrain the stats and how to use them in your mind. This will make for more on the felt comfort when using your HUD, more opponent exploitation, and ultimately, more profitable decisions. Challenge! Here's my challenge to you for this episode. Part 1. Make sure all 11 stats that I talked about today are in your HUD. Part 2, work on utilizing all of these one by one until you feel comfortable with each. And Part 3, write down 5 ways to exploit an opponent with each stat. Now it's your turn to take action and Scooby-Dooby-Doo something positive for your poker game.
Now get it on.
Of course, this episode isn't complete until you head to the show notes page at www.smartpokerstudy.com/pod125 for screenshots and links to everything discussed today and to discover ways in which you can support the podcast and keep me keeping on. Thank you so much for listening today, and thank you to 888poker.com. Don't forget your $10 first depositor bonus at 888poker by going to 888poker.com and using offer code SMART888. It's good for non-US players only. Alrighty, if you can type out the words Smart Poker Study, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Or send me an email to sky@smartpokerstudy.com. And a quick shout out to Moitoy, Domenico, Mary Lou, Alex, Nick, and Trent. I can't wait till Saturday. I'll see you guys there. And of course, a thank you to habwin.com. Please visit habwin.com/getpokercashback-like-a-pro, all one word, and go there to sign up for great cashback deals. Alrighty, poker people, next week in episode number 126, we're going to get to some post-flop talk with class number 1 of MED number 6, which is all about c-bet theory. And of course, word of mouth is the best advertising, so thank you very much for sharing the show with others. Your sharing and caring is what helps it grow. Until next time, study smart, play much, and make your next session the best one yet.